Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the program today. I'm Susan Ilian in Lagos. Here's what's coming up on the program within the hour. Israeli military unveil what they say is a 55-meter fortified tunnel under Gaza's Shifa hospital, backing their claims Hamas militants were using civilians as human shields. President Bola Tinubu joins other world leaders in attending the G20 CWA conference taking place in Berlin. And the Israeli army has released a video containing aerial footage showing what was said to be airstrikes directed by operating troops on the ground, killing 3 commanders. The statement of the Israeli army stated that the targets struck in the video are of Hamas infrastructure and weapons depot in the Strip, in addition to members of Hamas. Fierce fighting continues between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip as a hostage deal looms. Rockets flew out of Gaza as Israeli artillery and airstrikes continued pounding the Strip. The director of the Indonesian hospital in North Gaza says at least 10 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza later said that 12 people were killed. There are reports that Israeli tanks have moved in on the Indonesian capital. It appears Israel has provided evidence to its claim that Hamas has a tunnel under Al-Shifa hospital. The military has released footage which it shows a 55-meter-long terror tunnel underneath Gaza's largest hospital. It says that this clearly proves that numerous buildings in the hospital's complex are used by Hamas as cover for terrorist activities. However, the allegations have repeatedly been denied by Hamas and hospital staff. In the video, Israel described a tunnel dug by Palestinian militants under the medical facility, a focus of its search and destroy missions against Hamas in a war now in its 7th week. While acknowledging that it has a network of hundreds of kilometers of secret tunnels, bunkers, and access shafts throughout the Palestinian enclave, Hamas has denied that these are located in civilian infrastructures like hospitals. In an update on operations in Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital, the Israeli military said its engineers had uncovered a tunnel 10 meters deep and running 55 meters to a blast-proof door. Israel has released another video claiming to depict security camera footage showing Hamas allegedly bringing hostages from Israel into Al-Shifa hospital on the day of the October 7 attack. The video, aired by Chief Spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, appeared to show a group of men frog marching an individual into a hospital to the surprise of medical staff. A second clip showed an injured man on a gurney. Another man nearby in civilian clothes had an assault rifle. In a televised address on Sunday night, Daniel Hagari, the spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces, stated that additional bodies taken from Al-Shifa hospital included 1 Thai and 1 Nepali, according to official sources. Hamas has not commented on Hagari's statements. The Palestinian Islamist group, which runs Gaza, has previously said it took some hostages to hospitals for treatment.
We've also gathered more intelligence from the hospital, proving that Noah Marziano was not the only hostage taken by Hamas into Shifa hospital. I will now share concrete evidence of hostages. 1 from Nepal, 1 from Thailand, taken from Israel during the Hamas massacre on October 7th. The world must remember, Hamas is holding the elderly, men, women, children, babies, hostage. The Israel Defense Forces has a moral obligation to bring every one of our hostages home. We will not rest until we do. Hamas was hiding and murdering our hostages in Shifa Hospital. Hamas was building terror tunnels underneath Shifa Hospital. By now, the truth is clear. Hamas wages war from hospitals, wages terror from hospitals.
In the meantime, Israel says it is hopeful that a significant number of hostages could be released by Hamas in coming days. Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Herzog, made this known in an interview on U.S. media, ABC's This Week on Sunday. The Washington Post has reported that U.S. mediators were close to a deal between Israel and Hamas to free zones of women and children held hostage in Gaza in exchange for a 5-day pause in the conflict that would help boost emergency aid shipments to Gazan civilians. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said no deal had been reached yet. The White House denied an agreement was reached. Hamas took approximately 240 hostages during its deadly cross-border rampage into Israel on October 7, which prompted Israel to besiege and invade the tiny Palestinian territory.
Hopeful that we can get a significant number of hostages freed in the coming days. I don't want to go into the details of these talks. They are obviously very sensitive. The less we go into the details, the better the chances of such a deal. But they are very serious efforts, and I'm hopeful that we can have a deal in the coming days. We're talking about pausing the fighting for a few days so we can get the hostages out.
But
it's not a ceasefire, because we will continue to push against Hamas to dismantle their military infrastructure and their terror infrastructure. We're not going to stop that. But we are willing to go for a pause for a significant number of hostages if we have a deal. I think there's no real daylight between us and the U.S. Our forces are not there in order to reoccupy Gaza, to govern Gaza. It is not our desire. It is not our wish. We do not wish to take territory from Gaza. That's not the intention. Our intention is to dismantle the Hamas terror machine, the war machine, and President Biden says it in his article.
Still on the release of hostages, Qatar's prime minister says the main sticking points blocking a deal for the release of dozens of hostages taken by Hamas are mainly practical and logistical issues. Speaking at a joint press conference with European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell in Doha, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said talks were going through ups and downs, but said he is confident the captives would be returned soon and a deal was close. At the same press conference, Mr. Borrell said the United Nations Security Council's call for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses in fighting in Gaza must be implemented and grounds for a political two-state solution worked on in order to avoid more bloodshed in the future.
When you come closer to the goal, you feel your confidence levels are increasing, and we hope that we are reaching to that point. The sticking points, honestly, at this stage are more practical, logistical, not really something represent the core of the deal. The deal is going through ups and downs from time to time throughout the last few weeks, but I think that I'm now more confident that we are close enough to reach to a deal that can bring the people safely back to their homes, whether they are the hostages on Hamas side or whatever the exchange that will take place from the Israeli side.
One horror doesn't justify another horror. And the pain that you inflict to the children of others will not justify, will not compensate for the pain that your children have been suffering. But the contrary, it will create a violence spiral that will come once and again unless we got a peace, a sustainable peace. And that's why the European Union has called for immediate humanitarian pauses. And the United Nations Security Council, under the request of one member of the European Union, Malta, and with the support of France and Germany, members of the European Union, adopted a very important resolution asking for immediate, urgent, and sustainable humanitarian pauses. And I want to remind that the decisions of the Security Council are not just words. They are compilatory. They have to be implemented.
Palestinian group Hamas has thanked Yemen's Houthis for seizing a cargo ship thought to be Israeli in the southern Red Sea over the conflict in Gaza. Hamas representative Osama Hamdan told a briefing in Beirut that this is a welcome step from the Yemen forces who hijacked a Japanese-operated cargo ship. The Yemeni militia claims the ship is Israeli, but a Japanese government spokesperson confirmed the vessel is a car carrier operated by shipping company Nippon Yusen. The Houthis have been launching long-range missile and drone salvos at Israel in solidarity with Hamas. Last week, the Houthi leader said his forces would make further attacks on Israel, and they could target Israel's ships in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In response to the hijack, the Japanese government has strongly condemned the vessel seizure by the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Japan's chief cabinet secretary says it is working to get the ship released as ministries and agencies, including the Transport Ministry and the Foreign Ministry, are gathering information and working with the relevant countries for the early release of the vessel and its crew. 22 people are estimated to be on board the vessel, which is believed to be British-owned. Those on board include Bulgarians and Filipinos, with no Japanese nationals amongst the crew. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blames Iran, which backs the Houthi militia, for the hijacking. Mr. Netanyahu said neither the vessel nor the crew were Israeli and calls it an Iranian attack on an international ship. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has handed over a consignment of humanitarian aid for Palestinians from Gaza to the Egyptian Red Crescent. Now, there is no sign of a let-up in the war, despite international calls for a ceasefire or at least humanitarian pauses to tackle critical shortages of food, medicines, drinking water, and fuel afflicting civilians. Ms. von der Leyen said the EU had quadrupled humanitarian aid to Gaza to 100 million euros and had organized 15 flights bringing aid for Gazans to the nearby Egyptian city of Arish, with more to follow.
Egypt is truly providing a lifeline to Gaza. And the European Union is making full use of this lifeline to address the humanitarian needs in Gaza. Indeed, we are the largest donor to the Palestinian people and one of the main and most reliable donors to UNRWA. Over the last month, we have quadrupled our humanitarian aid to over 100 million euro. And in addition, our member states have added 260 million euros. We have organized a humanitarian air bridge operation. It is bringing vital supplies to El Arish for the people of Gaza. We have today completed 15 flights so far, and we are organizing more and more flights every day. Even as we deal with the urgency of today, we must also think about what the day after could look like and how Israelis and Palestinians can regain hope, have a perspective. And for this, they need a political solution. And this horizon is a two-state solution. It requires the agreement between Israelis and Palestinians. But the European Union is ready to support this process once the time comes, in very close cooperation with our friends and partners.
In the midst of the war, Palestinian children still find themselves some relief from the horrors of the conflict. In a playground in Khan Yunis, laughter and shrieks of delight echoed across the playfield as the youngsters played on swings and slides. But the war is never far away, according to one 13-year-old girl who says in Arabic that children want the war to end. They are living a big nightmare. Nearly 5,000 children have been killed out of 12,300 Palestinians since October 7th, according to the health ministry in Gaza. Palestinians say basic supplies like diapers, baby formula, and food have run out in the besieged strip. Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians, including children moving from northern Gaza to the south, have been sheltering in UN schools with little access to basic needs. Palestinian mother Ramadan Ayad said her children have been suffering from high fever, traumatized by non-stop airstrikes. UNICEF, the United Nations Children Agency, says the war in Gaza has catastrophic impacts on children. A first group of prematurely born babies who were evacuated from hospitals in the Gaza Strip have crossed into Egypt for medical treatment. Footage aired on Egypt's Al-Qahira TV showed medical staff carefully lifting tiny babies from inside an ambulance and placing them in incubators, which were then being wheeled across a car park towards other ambulances. According to the Palestinian Red Crescent and Al-Qahira TV, more than 24 babies are expected to cross the border. The newborns had been in Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza, where several other babies died amidst a collapse in medical services, partly caused by power cuts by Israel and fuel running out. They were taken on Sunday to a hospital in Rafah in southern Gaza, so their condition could be stabilized ahead of transfer to Egypt.
Premature babies which had been left behind when Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital was evacuated are being treated at a unit in Rafah. A joint operation by the UN and Palestinian Red Crescent moved 31 babies in incubators to Rafah, near the border crossing into Egypt. The Director General of Hospitals for the Palestinian Health Ministry, Dr. Mohammed Zakut, said they would be stabilized in Rafah before being taken to hospitals in Egypt. Egyptian officials had earlier reported premature babies from Shifa Hospital were being transported across the border, but later updated the information that the operation to transport the babies had been delayed. In another development, Palestinians displaced by the Israel-Hamas war and living in tents in Khan Yunis are facing the deluge of winter winds and rain. The population has been on the move since the start of the war, sheltering in hospitals or walking from the north to the south, and in some cases back again. The Israeli bombardment has flattened swathes of northern Gaza, while some 2/3 of the enclave's population of 2.3 million people have been displaced to the south. Meanwhile, Hamas has released a video of its fighters in action near the Rantisi Pediatric Hospital, with Israeli tanks parked nearby. While the location of the video can be verified, the date the video was recorded was not.
Survivors and relatives of those who fled or were taken from the music festival in the October 7th attack are finding some sort of closure. On Sunday, they were able to look for their belongings or those of their loved ones amongst items that were recovered from the site. Rows of sunglasses, spectacles, toys, clothes, and shoes spread out in boxes and along the floor at a healing center in Caesarea near Tel Aviv. Days ago, the belongings of the Nova victims were brought to the Kochav Hayam Healing Center so that the families of the people who were killed can visit and collect the belongings of their beloved ones. Survivors can come and look for the things they left behind as they fled from the attack. The Nova Music Festival took place in southern Israel, very close to the border with Gaza, where Hamas gunmen attacked on October 7. Israel says 1,200 people were killed in the rampage and over 240 hostages were taken, many of them thought to be in captivity in Hamas's vast Gaza tunnel network.
We bring all the stuff of all the survivors and all the kidnapping and the murdered people from the festival. We bring all the stuff to here, to the healing space that we hold in Kochav Hayam Caesarea. We want to tell to all the survivors and all the families to came here to take the stuff. We know that all the stuff that here, it's very, very important stuff for the families and for the survivors. It can be even small piece from people that was murdered there, and it's very important to the family. I was from the last people that were at the area of the festival. We ran away from the terrorists at the moment that they arrived to the festival. And I saw many stuff and many bags and many phones on the land at the moment that I ran away from the terrorists. My phone was there, my bags, my car, all my stuff, my laptop, and I know how much it's important.
Coming up after the break, authorities still retrieving bodies following heavy rains in the Kenyan city of Mombasa. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. 2 people have been killed early on Monday after Russian forces shelled a parking lot in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson. Kherson Governor Oleksandr Prokudin said the 2 dead are drivers for a private transport business. Regional prosecutors have opened a war crimes investigation into the artillery strike, which occurred in the morning, injuring 1 other person. Video footage posted by officials showed firefighters dousing cars that had been blasted apart. However, the location or the date when the video was filmed cannot be verified. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has once again visited Ukraine's capital, and he is expressing solidarity with Ukraine after he arrived for an official visit to Kyiv. Mr. Austin reiterated the United States' support and will continue to stand with Ukraine in their fight for freedom against Russia's aggression. Whilst in Kyiv, he stopped by the U.S. Embassy and thanked the staff for, quote, taking care of each other and for being great professionals. The visit comes amid increasing division over Ukraine and in the U.S. legislature, even as a joint Ukraine-U.S. military industry conference in Washington is due to take place next month.
President of the United States, it's great. I just want you to know that we're grateful for what you're doing. I am personally grateful. The President of the United States is grateful. I know that because I talk to him a lot. And you are on his mind each and every day. So thanks for taking care of each other. And thanks for being such great professionals. God bless you. This is still a very dangerous environment, no question about it. And I hope that based upon your work, based upon the work of the other 50 countries that are working with us, that we can move the needle forward and help Ukraine do what it wants to do, and that is regain its sovereign territory.
Let's switch to Myanmar now, where refugees currently living in India have described their harrowing experiences during a recent upsurge in fighting between ethnic minority insurgent groups and the country's military junta. One of them is Lalrimruati, who had fled to the Indian border town of Zokarthar with her young family. She says the military was breaking down doors in her village and forcing people to come out of their houses. In late October, 3 ethnic minority insurgent groups launched what they call Operation 1027, based on the date their offensive began, to take on junta troops in Shan State near Myanmar's border with China, winning control of several towns and more than 100 military outposts. The violence had led to many people living in the border towns to flee into neighboring countries. The offensive is the most serious challenge to Myanmar's junta since the 2021 coup.
When I was there, they had so many problems, and the army, the military, we came to our village and just like go to one by one houses and knocking the doors and ask them to come out. Everybody, so some people are very scared and hiding inside the houses, even though they are breaking their door and let them to come out. in that time it's very worse.
People also, many people died, and then no working and no money. So come to India.
Over in Britain, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak today announced a new science initiative to bring together work on developing climate-resilient crops as his government hosts a global food security summit in London. The summit, a joint initiative between Britain, Somalia, the UAE, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, is due to be attended by representatives from more than 20 countries. Britain says the new virtual science hub would be led by CGIAR, a global research partnership that unites international organizations working on food security. It would link UK scientists with research initiatives to develop crops that can withstand the impacts of climate change and are more disease resistant. And what has former U.S. President Donald Trump been up to? Gaining endorsements, we'll tell you. On Sunday, he won the endorsement of Texas Governor Greg Abbott at an event near the U.S.-Mexico border. A location meant to highlight the former president's plans to crack down on immigration if he wins the 2024 elections.
The radical left Democrats and their allies in the fake news media right back there.
Biden's border policies pose a danger to communities across the United States. He credited Trump with cutting border crossings to the lowest point in decades during his presidency. Since Biden took office in 2021, U.S. border agents have made more than 5 million arrests of migrants, making regular crossings, not through a controlled border station over the U.S.-Mexico border. Migrants have arrived from around the world. Large numbers have fled economic and political turmoil in Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela.
And defeated, they had an outrageous attempt. The same people that have been suing me for like 7 years. Crew, you ever hear of Crew? Bunch of losers. Crew. They've been losing for 7 years, but they don't stop. They'll never stop. But it was an outrageous attempt at disenfranchising millions and millions of voters by getting us thrown off the ballot. And the judge in the end said, we can't do that. So, they can't do that. If they did that, I think it would have been very difficult for our country. Now Crooked Joe is back with TPP2. It's worse than the first one, threatening to pulverize farmers and manufacturers with another massive globalist monstrosity designed to turbocharge outsourcing to Asia. It's going to Asia. Asia's doing very well. Under the next administration and our next administration, Biden plan for TPP2 will be dead on day one. It'll be dead before I get to the top of the stairs. He walked up with a man who looks like a piece of granite, right? He's strong like granite. He's strong. I know him very well. President Xi of China. And he's standing there. He's a fierce person. Now, the press doesn't like it when I say good things about, but what can I say? He runs 1.4 billion people with an iron hand. And they say, oh, he said good things about him. No, he happens to be a very smart person. If I say a certain leader is smart, that's controlling a big part of the world, the press gets upset that I say smart because that's a good thing. No, very smart people. These are very smart people. But this is so important because you are first in the nation. Look, I kept you first in the nation. I'm the one that, will you please give me a good show, at least out of it, okay? Please. Please.
G20 leaders are meeting in Berlin, Germany for the CWA conference taking place alongside the fourth G20 Investment Summit, co-hosted by the German government and German Business Association. Earlier, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Africa could count on Germany for early investment in the production of green hydrogen, which Europe's largest economy would need to import in large quantities in order to achieve carbon neutrality. He added that the Compact Africa Summit, holding alongside the summits, would send the signal that African countries could count on Germany as a partner.
Doing so and discussing these topics is that
on the sidelines of the Germany-Africa Summit, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, spoke with our London bureau chief, Juliana Olayinka, at the event. He says the whole idea of the summit is to open up Africa and allay fears of businesses with regards to political and financial risks.
It's very important because it's the Compact with Africa is a G20 initiative, which initially consisted of 12 countries. Nigeria was not a part of it, but because of the personal rapport that has been struck by Chancellor Scholz and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we're here today. Nigeria is participating in the discourse, and the whole idea is to open up Africa and to allay the fears of businesses with regards to political and financial risk. In the case of Nigeria, as you know, we've had a transition. We've transited from military rule in 1999 to democratic rule. We've had our system tested. We've had transitions from one individual to the other. We've had transitions from one political party to the other. And we've proved to be resilient. So in terms of political risk, I'd say that is a thing of the past. What we're looking at addressing is financial risk. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu comes from a private sector background. He understands the concerns of businesses, and he's willing to do whatever is possible to allay those fears and to de-risk investment, de-risk trade. And Nigeria happens to have so many sectoral funds that it could use not to spend, but as credit risk guarantees, as insurance. So Nigeria has that unique advantage. So we're looking for partners like Germany to meet us halfway, to mitigate risk. And, you know, business thrives. And the medium-sized family-owned businesses, the Mittelstands here in Germany, can invest in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole.
Joining us now is Foreign Affairs analyst Collins Nweke, who joins us from Brussels. Collins, now, this is the president's second foreign trip in a month, and it's been like this since he assumed power. He has embarked on shuttle diplomacy as Nigeria's #1 salesman. People in government will say these are not empty trips. The president is soliciting foreign direct investment for the country, which you might argue either way. The question is this a strategy needed for the country at this time, given present economic realities?
The role of the president of any country, be it the political leader or, a monarch, is to be the #1 salesman of that country. So we can't make any mistake about that. But you see, if it is not driven purposefully, it will amount to nothing. I mean, in terms of the net gain to the country, rather, you will end up with a net loss for the country. And so those who are trying to evaluate, the frequent trip of President Ahmed Tinubu since becoming president would have to look at, indeed, the preparations, but also the optic of the meeting itself. Now, from what we can see, it doesn't quite look like, these trips are, very well prepared. One way, very obvious way to, make that assertion or to ascertain the extent of preparedness, it is indeed those on the entourage. As a matter of fact, you would expect to see both technocrats, intellectuals, academics, but also relevant, government appointees by way of ministers that actually accompany him to the trip where, for instance, the focus is trade or the focus is, for instance, power generation and so on and so forth. Now, we don't seem to have been seeing such people around Mr. President who will advise him because, he's not expected to know everything, and he shouldn't know everything, particularly the technical side of business. So that is the first indication that it doesn't look like, these troops are well prepared. And like the saying goes, if you do not prepare well, you are actually, preparing yourself to fail. But of course, we can't rule anything out at this point because these are meant to be long-term, business meetings, of which the gestation period is expected to be, mid to long-term. So it could very well be that after some time, we might be proven wrong, but from the way things are going, these trips don't appear to be very well prepared.
So then what conditions are necessary for shuttle diplomacy to be deployed? We've seen it work before in Nigeria during the Obasanjo civil administration in the 1990s. He had to deploy that, given that Nigeria's standing in the international community was rather poor, thanks to years of military rule. Now, is it a plan that is necessary now?
Well, Susan, shuttle diplomacy is a verified, veritable tool of, foreign policy in terms of achieving a number of things, most importantly, international public relations for a country, but also activating very critical, investment into your country. But of course, for a country like Nigeria, with the current state of its economy, such shuttle diplomacy as we have seen President Muhammadu Buhari done at the time, fewer than the current President Ahmed Tinubu, can indeed have some very downsides to it. For Nigeria, the potential drawback actually includes high cost. These trips don't come very cheap because what we see on television usually is the president. But the president is accompanied by, an entourage. In the case of President Tinubu, it has always been a very, very exhaustive, very robust entourage. These are people who have to be accommodated, who have to be fed, and who are to be paid extra quote, for their time away from, their offices in Abuja. So yes, and then I've not talked of the logistics and the rest of them. So these come very, very expensive at a time when Nigeria is actually borrowing money to be able to buy SUVs for the legislators. I mean, we are not talking of spending, from oil windfall and so on and so forth, spending from their reserves. No, Nigeria is actually borrowing to be able to buy such, and indeed even buy, cruise, ship for the president, or for presidential cruise ship, it was called. So these are, very important issues to actually consider very well. And then, make your needs analysis such that upfront you will be able to know what the deliverables are for this shuttle diplomacy, and then, put them side by side, the expenses that are being made. In the case of Nigeria, it doesn't look like, Nigeria is going to be making much out of this. And above all, you need to ask yourself, and indeed be, very honest about all of this. Is this what Nigeria needs now? What are risk analysts talking about investment in Nigeria? Because it's not just about going out there, meeting with potential investors and, having handshakes, photo opportunities. You also have to look at investment conditions in Nigeria and, ask yourself the critical question: what are risk analysts out there What are they advising their clients about in long-term investment in Nigeria? Yes, short-term investment, no problem. I think you will always get them more or less, some sort of trading, but critical long-term investment remains a challenge for Nigeria because the investment climate is very, very poor. So it is doubtful that the shuttle diplomacy that Mr. President is undertaking are, set to deliver tangible outcome for Nigeria in the coming years.
So, Mr. Nweke, let's look at promises made on some of the president's trips. When he went to the UAE, he announced a decision for both countries to renew visa policies, allowing Nigerian travelers back in the UAE after a few years of that service being restricted to a certain category of people. And just recently, Nigeria and Saudi Arabia agreed to billions of dollars in investment over the next 7 years. And the establishment also of the Nigeria-Saudi Business Council. And now, in Berlin, at the G20 CWA conference, he will be signing bilateral agreements with partners, heads of international organizations, deliberating on investment in critical areas such as energy, trade, and infrastructure, among others. There has been some gains. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, Susan, in regards to the trip to UAE, United Arab Emirates, and the aftermath of the meeting, I mean, the simplest that could be said is that, it was a shame. It was a shame that Nigeria went ahead to announce what they believe to be the deliverables of such trip, resumption of flights, and then, visa issuance to Nigerians, and so on and so forth. Not to talk of the size of the investment deals that, they purport to have signed. Not long after that, the Saudi government, after being quiet for a while, actually came out to debunk some of those claims. It's a shame. It's a shame, but one can only hope, not intending to hammer too much on that, that Nigeria would have learned a lesson from that. I heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs talk about the fact that, the relevant authorities in the future will be issuing relevant, pronouncements as a consequence of such trips. But the media people don't appear to have learned anything, in terms of lessons out of those. What we see here is a high level of, spin doctoring. Don't get me wrong. In politics, it is a tool, it is used, but it's got to be used responsibly. In this case, that has not happened. And, Nigeria has to be a bit more careful in that regards.
All right, that was Mr. Nweke. Now, over in the Dominican Republic, rescuers pulled bodies out from under debris on Saturday night after a wall collapsed in an avenue in Santo Domingo. According to the Public Works Ministry, at least 3 vehicles were trapped under the wall when it collapsed as heavy rains lashed the Dominican capital on Saturday afternoon. Unofficial reports said that at least 9 people died after the collapse of the wall on 27 de Febrero Avenue. Heavy downpours, thunderstorms, and wind gusts have hit several provinces of the Caribbean island in the last 24 hours. Kenyans living in the coastal city of Mombasa have been dealing with the impacts of heavy rains causing floods across the city. The water rose chest high. Rescuers have been recovering bodies since the rainy season began less than a month ago. Many have also been rendered homeless.
This is the situation in the Kenyan coastal city of Mombasa. The streets submerged following days of heavy rains. Passengers are evacuating from this flooded bus, holding on to a rope amid chest-high water. Others stand on top of the bus with umbrellas and raincoats as they wait for their turn to pull themselves to safety. This is happening in the Kinsauni district, nearly 500 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi. Residents are calling for help amidst the floods that have displaced thousands of people.
I'm unable to cross this river because I don't have the amount of money they are charging people to be assisted to cross. So if the government can come to our aid, please help us, because some of us can end up sleeping here. We are also asking if we can be assisted with a boat to help us cross.
At least 46 people have died in flood-related incidents in Kenya since the raining season began less than a month ago. According to aid group Save the Children, the death toll is expected to rise. The Coastal Regional Police say more than 20,000 families have been displaced across the 3 affected counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, and Tana River. Hundreds of thousands of people remain homeless, even as heavy rains followed by flash floods submerged towns across East Africa.
It's Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia, meaning there are hundreds of exhibitions from around the world, each showcasing culture, tradition, and perhaps a few lessons in history. At the Boulevard, world visitors get to see favorite landmarks, experience unique treats, and cultural aspects of these countries. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, reports.
It's a long ride from the hotel to the Boulevard World, one which started late in the afternoon and saw us arrive at our destination when it was already dark. Welcome to Boulevard World, part of Riyadh season this year. Nothing prepared us for what we were about to see. From replicas of movies past and present, we're transported to countries such as China and Syria, where visitors are treated to street-sold coffee or tea and local treats. Then we segue into the Iranian exhibition, where the sale of precious stones and jewelry seem to be the favorite merchandise.
We bring it Iran, a stone of Iran, high quality natural stone like emerald, like ruby, like sapphire, like agate. Which kind of stone do you like it? We have here, and we can make a bracelet, necklace, earring, anything you want it. You know, in all world, precious stone is expensive, you know. It's not a synthetic stone, it's high quality of stones, like emerald, like ruby.
Even the little children got excited at seeing our camera and wanted to say hello.
Your name? Huh? What's your name? This is Fahudi. Fahudi. Oh, how old is Fahudi? Yes.
Morocco, the first African country that we're entering into, well, the exhibition actually, here at the Boulevard. You know, Boulevard is like a potpourri of, different countries and cultures in one place for people of Saudi Arabia to get an understanding of the world that they live in and other people who live in it. We also get to see local jewelry and watch the painstaking art of rug making and shoe making. Italy is up next in our sights.
قالوا ميت هلا حياكم الله زورونا في ايطاليا تشرفونا وتنورونا قالوا سهلا يا مرحبا.
It's the home of favorite pizza parlors and the famous tiramisu.
What we do is each country we brought something coming from their tradition. So we brought this one, which is you just pictured is the tiramisu, and we serve it the way of the Italian they serve it. And also we have fried pizza, which is coming from Milano.
Let's go, guys, fast, because you want to finish and cook, and because you want to go Europe directly. خلاص. الله يطول.
A final stop is the city of love, Paris, where you can see the Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower, the street attractions reminiscent of the city itself.
Did you say France? You visit already.
Riyadh Season is an annual state-funded entertainment and sports festival, started as part of 11 entertainment festivals carried out by Saudi Seasons Initiative that was launched in 2019. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
U.S. President Joe Biden is 81 today, a milestone likely to draw attention to his status as the oldest person to ever occupy the Oval Office, with opinion polls showing Americans worried he is too old for the post he is seeking re-election for. Biden has addressed those who worry that he is too old for the rigors of the White House with humor and an attempt to convince voters that his age and experience over a half a century in public life is an asset in tackling America's problems. If re-elected, Biden would be 86 by the end of his second term in office. Republican Ronald Reagan, who had the prior record as oldest U.S. president, ended his second four-year term at age 77 in 1989. And ushering Parisians into the Christmas season is the Champs-Élysées, which donned holiday colors as the traditional Christmas lights on the iconic French Avenue were inaugurated. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo and French actor Gilles Lelouch pressed the button to inaugurate the illuminations this year, with the crowd cheering as the lights glimmered on the Champs-Élysées 400 trees. The lights will brighten up the avenue every night during the holiday season until January 7. That's it for The World Today. See you tomorrow.